I thought the texts from her were innocent, but then I saw the pictures they sent each other. It was late on a Thursday evening when I found myself scrolling through her phone. Not because I had reason to suspect anything. I never thought I would. But my gut had been nagging me for a while. She'd become more distant over the last couple of weeks, always on her phone, always busy when we were together. There were little signs that I brushed off. She was working late, or had a project that kept her busy, or was just catching up with old friends. But as I looked at her phone screen, her locked phone screen, which I had never touched before, it was like everything inside me dropped. I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't snooping with an agenda. But I was tired of the unanswered questions swirling in my head. So I picked up her phone, and for the first time, I unlocked it without asking. She always kept it face up on the kitchen counter, which I had told myself was a sign of trust, so I figured it was fine to check her messages. I opened her messages with him. It was a guy I had heard her mention a few times, but I'd never thought much of it. He was an old friend, someone she met through work. She'd mentioned him a couple of times in passing, but it didn't seem like anything to worry about. But then I saw the pictures. There was one from just a few days ago. It was a selfie of her, taken from the bathroom, her hair up in a messy bun, no makeup, wearing a loose shirt. It was innocent enough, until I saw the next one, his face closer to the camera, eyes mischievously glancing at the camera, his arm around her waist. The next message was a flirtatious comment about her looking too good to be that casual in her picture. She responded with a laughing emoji and a "you're ridiculous," but then, just below that, I saw another picture. A picture of her in his bed. She was lying on her stomach, propped up on her elbows, and the caption was, "Wish you were here." I felt like I'd been hit in the chest. My heart started pounding, my stomach knotted, and everything around me seemed to disappear. I just stared at the screen, waiting for my mind to catch up with what I was seeing. I clicked through a few more messages, my eyes racing over the words, trying to make sense of them. But the deeper I went, the worse it got. She had been sending him intimate selfies, pictures that I thought were only for me. There was one of her in lingerie that I'd never seen before, captioned with a simple "miss you." And then there was another, a photo of her in what looked like a hotel room bed, the sheets wrinkled and the lighting dim. She was smiling, but it wasn't a smile I recognized. It was like a secret smile, one shared between two people who were in on a joke that I wasn't invited to. I felt lightheaded. The room suddenly felt too small, the walls too close, as though the air was being sucked out of the room. I didn't know what to do. My fingers hovered over the screen. What was I supposed to do now? I could feel the bile rise in the back of my throat, but I couldn't look away. I wanted to burn this image from my mind, but it was seared into my brain. I backed out of the conversation and clicked on the call log. She'd spoken to him late the night before, and again earlier that afternoon. At least 4 or 5 calls in the last 2 weeks alone, calls I never knew about. That's when I finally heard her coming up the stairs. The sound of the front door opening, her voice calling out, saying she was home. I froze, phone in hand, my entire body on fire, but my mind was frozen. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her? Should I wait for her to explain herself? I stood there for a moment, phone pressed against my forehead, like it could somehow block out the truth. She stepped into the living room, smiling when she saw me standing there. Her face lit up, but the smile faltered when she saw the phone in my hand. "Hey, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice suddenly cautious. I didn't even respond. I just stared at her, at the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved for over a year. She had been mine, and I had been hers, or so I thought. "Why were you texting him like this?" I asked, my voice hoarse, almost unrecognizable. It was the only question that made sense in the chaos of my mind. I couldn't even look at her directly. I just kept staring at the phone, at the evidence, at the lies. Her eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like she was about to say something, but she didn't. She just stared at me, her expression slowly shifting into something defensive. The silence between us was suffocating. I could feel the weight of everything crashing down on me all at once. I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice cracked just a little. I felt a surge of anger. How could she stand there and lie to me? I wanted to scream, to throw the phone at her, to demand an explanation. But instead, I just handed it to her. Don't lie to me, I whispered. These are your messages. These are your pictures. She took the phone from me, and as she scanned the screen, her face drained of color. For a moment, there was nothing. No words, no reaction. She just stared, her lips trembling. And then, without warning, she dropped the phone onto the couch and walked away from me. My heart pounded louder now. What was she going to do? Where was she going? Was she leaving? Did she even care? She stood by the door for a moment, her back to me, and then turned around. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, like she couldn't even find the strength to face me. I never meant for you to find out like this. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Then how was it supposed to happen? I shot back, my voice sharp with disbelief. You've been texting him like that behind my back, sending him pictures, telling him you miss him, lying to me every time I asked if something was going on with you too. How was I supposed to find out? I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice cracking as she wiped a tear from her eye. I thought I could keep it from you. I thought you wouldn't find out. I thought if I kept things separate, maybe I could still have everything. Everything. I almost laughed. She thought she could still have everything? She thought she could keep this a secret and still have me, too? You thought you could have me and him? I asked, incredulous. The words stung as they came out. That's what this was, wasn't it? You were playing both sides, and now you think saying I didn't mean to hurt you is going to make it better? Is that what you think? She opened her mouth like she was going to speak, but nothing came out. She was shaking now, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. And for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But then I remember the pictures, the lies, the cold, cruel betrayal, and any sympathy I had for her evaporated in an instant. I don't even know who you are anymore, I muttered, barely able to get the words out. I don't know how you could do this to me. I never meant for it to go this far, she repeated, but this time it didn't sound like an apology. It sounded like an excuse, and that made it worse. I couldn't stay in this room with her anymore. I couldn't look at her, couldn't pretend like I didn't feel like I was going to choke on the betrayal. I think you should go, I said, voice shaking. I need space. I need you to leave. She hesitated for a long moment, and then she nodded, the tears in her eyes making everything seem even more heartbreaking. She grabbed her bag, slowly walking toward the door. As she reached the threshold, she turned to face me one last time. I'm so sorry, she whispered, and then she left. I stood there for what felt like hours, my heart aching in ways I didn't know were possible. I had no idea what came next. I didn't know how I was supposed to move forward from this. All I knew was that the woman I thought I loved, the woman I had trusted, had just shattered everything I thought I knew about her and about myself. I thought the texts from her were innocent, but now I knew they were anything but. Part 2. I stood there for what felt like forever after she left, the front door still hanging slightly ajar, the silence in the apartment so thick it almost felt suffocating. The weight of everything crashed down on me. Her betrayal, the lies, the images burned into my mind. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, confusion, they all collided inside me, and I felt like I might explode. I finally forced myself to sit on the couch, staring at the spot where she'd stood only minutes ago. The space between us seemed so wide now, so final. I picked up her phone, still lying there on the couch where she'd dropped it, and my eyes instinctively went back to the texts. The ones I couldn't unsee. Her and him, laughing together, teasing each other, sending flirty messages like they were some kind of secret lovers. It was clear now that it wasn't just innocent banter. They were in something together, something that had been building for months right under my nose, and I had been too naive to see it. I scrolled back through the thread again, reading over the messages. Miss you, she had said. Wish you were here. It didn't even feel like she was my girlfriend anymore. She felt like a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. I threw the phone down on the coffee table with a sharp thud, but it did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. I stood up, pacing the small living room, my mind still racing, trying to figure out where things went wrong. How could I have missed this? It wasn't like she'd been entirely different. There had been no dramatic change overnight. But looking back, I could see the little cracks. The late-night texts, The way she'd pull away when I tried to hold her too close, the sudden need for space that seemed to stretch on for weeks. She had been slipping away for a long time, and I hadn't even noticed. I had been so focused on what I thought was good about us, the plans we had, the future I'd envisioned, that I ignored the subtle signs that something wasn't right. I sank onto the couch, my elbows on my knees, my face buried in my hands. I wanted to scream, to punch something. I wanted to do anything to make this hurt less, but nothing worked. Nothing could. I needed to get out of the apartment. I couldn't stay here, not with all of this hanging over me. I grabbed my keys and left, not even bothering to lock the door behind me. The cold air outside hit me like a slap, and for a second, I welcomed the shock of it. The physical sting grounded me when everything inside felt too overwhelming. I walked for hours, no particular destination in mind. I just needed to move, to get away from the place that now felt like a prison. My thoughts kept circling back to her, how I had trusted her, how I had built my life around the idea of us. But it was all a lie. Everything she said, every excuse she made was a lie. I eventually ended up at a bar. Not my usual spot, just a place I knew was quiet, tucked away in a corner of the city. The place was nearly empty, save for a few regulars nursing their drinks. I took a seat at the far end of the bar, ordered a whiskey, and just let the world fade around me for a bit. The first sip burned all the way down, but I didn't care. I needed something to numb the constant ache in my chest. I don't know how long I sat there, just staring at the glass in front of me. Eventually, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. It was her. My heart stuttered for a second, and I almost didn't look at it. But I did. "I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve this, but can we please talk? I need to explain. I never meant for it to happen like this." The words felt like daggers. I almost laughed, but it came out as a choked sob instead. She still wanted to explain? Explain what? That she'd betrayed me? That she'd given herself to someone else? There was nothing to explain. Nothing that could make it better. I didn't respond. I just stared at her message, the anger building up again. I had no idea what I was supposed to say. What could I say? The hurt was too deep, and the betrayal felt like it was etched into my skin. I finished my drink and ordered another, then another after that. The bar kept spinning in and out of focus. I don't even know how much time passed, but eventually I found myself back in the apartment. It wasn't until I was unlocking the door that I realized I had been avoiding coming home. Every part of me wanted to just drive away, go anywhere but here. But this was my reality now. This was the life I had to face. When I stepped inside, the apartment felt even more empty than before. Her things were still here, her coat hanging on the hook by the door, her shoes kicked off by the couch. It felt like she just stepped out, like she might walk back in any second. But I knew she wasn't. She wouldn't be coming back. I picked up the phone again. Her text was still there, waiting for me. The apology. The explanation. The same thing she had said over and over before. I could feel the familiar sting of tears building in the back of my throat, but I refused to let them fall. I couldn't let myself be weak. Not yet. I had to make it through this night first. I stood there, holding her phone in my hands, staring at the screen, trying to think, to process. My fingers hovered over the keys, itching to respond, to tell her that this was over, that everything we had, everything I thought we had was gone, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was still too raw, still too angry. I didn't trust myself to say anything that wouldn't make the situation worse. Instead, I just put the phone down and sat on the couch, staring out the window at the city lights. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to talk to her again. But I knew one thing. I couldn't keep pretending like nothing had happened. I couldn't keep ignoring the truth that had been staring me in the face all along. Eventually, I turned off the lights and lay in bed, my mind racing. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. But somehow, I knew that this was just the beginning of something. A new chapter one wasn't prepared for, but one I had to face.